The top stories: government urges the TPLF to reciprocate truce. And renowned Ethiopian activist dubs U.S. draft bill an offshoot of neo-colonialist tendencies. Hello, many thanks for joining us. You're watching Addis News Hour with the news. I'm Tabitha John. Do stay with us. The Council of Ministers, during its 6th regular session, has passed a resolution on various issues. The Council discussed the draft policy of technology and innovation, which is based on utilization, coping and adaptation of technologies in medium and large-scale manufacturing and service institutions. Putting the significance of the policy in other industries, including tourism, mining and ICT fields, the Council decided to implement the policy after it is published on Federal Negarit Gazette. The Council has also approved draft bills to regulate structure, power and function of 11 executive institutions. Accordingly, the regulatory document will be effective after published on the Federal Negarit Gazette. Finally, the Council endorsed the draft bill to revise the establishing proclamation of the National Security and Intelligence Service. The Council referred the resolution to the 547-seat Parliament for approval. Commander-in-Chief Abiy Ahmed commended the Ethiopian Federal Police for its expedited reform process. Visiting the newly built Central Command Control Center here in the capital, Abiy said the government will continue to render every necessary support to the police. In a message he delivered on his official Facebook page, the Commander-in-Chief praised the police for taking the initiative to allow Ethiopia reap the benefits of state-of-the-art equipment and technology while discharging its responsibility. Director General of the Department of African Affairs at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China, Wu Peng, stated that China welcomes the humanitarian truce by the Ethiopian government to ensure the access for humanitarian aid to Tigray state. Peng further reaffirmed that China supports the ongoing national dialogue, adding it will continue to provide humanitarian assistance to Ethiopia. Meanwhile, Greece has welcomed the decision by Ethiopia's government to declare an immediate immediate unilateral truce in its conflict with rebellious TPLF forces to allow aid into the northern province. In a statement on Saturday, the Greek Foreign Ministry also welcomed a statement by the TPLF, who agreed to a cessation of hostilities, marking a turning point in the nearly 17-month war in northern Ethiopia. The ministry urged both sides to now work to ensure that life-saving humanitarian aid reaches those in need. In a related development, France commended the Ethiopian government's declaration of humanitarian truce yesterday to expedite the delivery of humanitarian aid to Tigray. In a statement, the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued, quote-unquote, "We have taken note of the willingness of the Tigray People's Liberation Front to accept this truce and call on all the parties to the conflict to do likewise." The Ethiopian-American journalist and activist Hermela Aregawi says the HR 6600 draft bill is nothing but a manifestation of remnants of neo-colonialist camps in the U.S. She further called for collective efforts to speak out against this punitive sanction proposed by some U.S. Congress members. Alula Teklamariam has the rest of the story.
Both the mainstream and social media are currently flooded with immense voices of oppositions to the punitive sanctions against Ethiopia. In the name of stabilizing Ethiopia, some members of the U.S. Congress drafted bills of H.R. 6600 and S.R. 3199. But this decision sparks fresh oppositions and condemnations by Ethiopians against the U.S. government. People like Hermela Aregawi, one of the founders of the No More movement, strongly oppose the bill, calling it a manifestation of neo-colonialist tendencies.
It basically, what it does is it puts the U.S. Congress as the government of Ethiopia, right? Essentially what it's saying is we want to run the government. We want to get reports every 6 months about what's going on in the country, in the goal of ending this war. So on the premise, it's saying this government doesn't know what it's doing. This African government can't govern, so we want to do it. So it's essentially neo-colonization. Really, when you look at it, it's so extreme in the things that it asks for. It asks for a report.
Proposed back in February this year, the H.R. 6600 draft bill entails various forms of sanctions, including suspensions of security and financial assistance to the Ethiopian government. Hermela went on expounding how serious the impact of the bill could be if passed.
We know that the Ethiopian economy, like every economy during a war, is struggling. It's unnecessarily having to put money into the war when it could be putting it into the rest of the country. So when you're talking about more economic sanctions, we saw Ethiopia removed from AGOA. We're talking about more sanctions, even more extreme kind of economic limitations, like limiting certain international loan access that the Ethiopian government may have if it doesn't meet the expectations of Congress. And who is that going to hurt ultimately? It's not going to be some of the people in government. It's going to go down to the people. And there is no record of U.S. sanctions actually making another country's government better, more democratic, more stable, more peaceful. What it actually does is it pins that government, like it did in Cuba and Iran, into a corner, into an even tighter economic corner, and that usually doesn't bring out the best in people or in governments.
The activists took the occasion to welcome the government's decision for humanitarian truce in Tigray.
I would love for this to be the beginning of the end, right? Yeah. We saw in June the humanitarian ceasefire that was called a sick joke by TPLF. That was the moment for me, although I had a lot of doubts before then. That was the moment I thought, like, after all this, after saying say no to war, there was an opportunity to actually bring peace. That was what, less than a year from the war starting, and we really missed that opportunity.
The No More movement has emboldened and brought Hermela to the front line in the fight against and foreign interventions in the internal affairs of the Eastern African nation.
State Minister for Government Communications Service, Selamawit Kasa, disclosed that the global community is expressing its appreciation for the humanitarian truce that has been recently declared by Ethiopia. Selamawit said the other side must reciprocate to the measure taken by the government so that humanitarian aid will be delivered successfully to the people in need. The State Minister affirmed strong commitment of the government to the fruitfulness of the humanitarian truce. According to the State Minister, close to 1.4 million people were displaced from several parts of the Amhara state alone, of whom 1.2 million have been reinstated to their residential places. Due to prolonged consequences of the war, there are still 11 million people in Amhara state who have not yet ensured food security, she added. Selamawit also disclosed that 1.3 million people have been displaced in Afar region, adding that the government is working hard to address the humanitarian need in the region. Regarding drought-affected people in some parts of Oromia and Somali regions, the State Minister said the government is delivering daily relief support, including clean water supply. In business news, promoting Ethiopian traditional costume and products is said to be vital in helping revive the tourism industry. The Association of the Ethiopian Community in Dubai and the Northern Emirates celebrated the annual Ethiopia Day for the 8th time under the banner, quote-unquote, I for the community and the community for me. Participants further said the expo has a paramount significance to enhance the relationship between Ethiopia and the UAE in trade and investment sectors. Take a look.
That day was celebrated with music shows and sports competitions, with Ethiopian business owners selling and showcasing their products to attendees, ranging from thousands of Ethiopians living in the United Arab Emirates, diplomats and the Ethiopian community leaders to guests.
We have showcased standard raw, ground and roasted sidama, as well as Guji coffee in the expo. We brought all these fresh products from Ethiopia. Ethiopian coffee producers back home are reaping greater profits, and this promotion helps the nation earn more foreign exchange. We are promoting Ethiopian products like t-shirts, flags and books. This helps Ethiopian children born and grow up here to get a good glimpse into Ethiopia and its culture.
In the exhibition center, traditional dish, fasting and non-fasting food items were showcased. The Halaba Association in Dubai also exhibited products promoting Halaba culture. Ethiopian Community Association in Dubai and the Northern Emirates also disclosed that Ethiopians, friends of Ethiopia and members of the community are playing crucial role in promoting domestic products to the outside world.
We are showcasing cultured dressings brought from Ethiopia. Many people have shops here. Our association plans to build a huge marketing center. As soon as we finish building the mall, we import products from Ethiopia directly and distribute them to the community here, because it's significant to bring domestic products to the Middle East and to change the currency to dollar to support the community living in Ethiopia and here Dubai.
And now take a quick look at the latest foreign exchange rates. And finally, from across Africa, the 2018 South Sudan Peace Pact could be in jeopardy after loyal forces to President Salva Kiir blamed those affiliated with Vice President Riek Machar for the fighting in the north of the country. We have the following story from the CGTN.
South Sudanese People's Defense Force, which is under President Salva Kiir, blames forces loyal to Vice President Riek Machar for the fighting in the northern part of the country in what's known as Upper Nile region.
We are under attack without any provocation. We did not get out of our defensive positions to go and attack our peace partners. So I'm alerting all the stakeholders that SPLA-IO is on offensive. If there's anything they can do, let them prevail over SPLA-IO so that they stop all forms of hostilities.
The opposition force under Vice President Riek Machar, known as Sudan People's Liberation Army, in opposition denies attacking President Kiir's forces. It says it's only fighting now in self-defense.
We are calling on the peace guarantors, the IGAD, those who are responsible for this peace, to make sure they put these two parties down and find out the best possible solution to solve this. Otherwise, what I'm saying is that SSPDF is taking us back to war.
The opposition force, led by Vice President Riek Machar, says it has pulled out from the various security mechanisms under the 2018 peace deal because of continuous attacks on its positions by President Kiir's forces. Many in South Sudan are concerned about the clash.
Presidency is a mechanism and develop in the agreement that this mechanism of the presidency is a meeting of the president, first vice president, and other vice presidents. They have the primary responsibility to prevent this violence from escalating. So we're calling upon the members of the presidency, headed by the president, to make sure that they have an urgent meeting to call their field commanders to stop violating the ceasefire agreement.
The country has 5 vice presidents, 3 of whom have their own separate armed forces. Many are saying the biggest achievement of the 2018 peace agreement was the ceasefire holding for more than 2 years. However, with fighting now in the northern part of the country, there's fear that the peace deal may fall apart unless the disagreements that are leading to the clash are resolved.
And now here's the weather updates.